Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV from Toronto. I'm Mohammed Maxwell Hassan, and coming up, an interview with ZAHIRAH EPPARD on planning a productive summer with your kids. Here's what's making news. Afghan immigration program stops considering new applicants. Federal fund to encourage Indigenous participation during Papal visit. MuslimFest to reach Markham tomorrow. President Biden in Jeddah for the Arab Regional Summit. And now the details. A special immigration program aimed to bring 40,000 Afghans to Canada has stopped taking new referrals after only accepting 18,000 applications. Initiated last year before the fall of Kabul, the program aimed to provide immigration to former employees of the armed forces or the Canadian government trapped in Afghanistan. Soon after the program was introduced, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau promised to bring in 40,000 Afghans to Canada. Immigration Minister Sean Fraser told the media that the program is not considering new applications. Advocates for refugees are criticizing the winding down of the program. They say this decision will severely impact Afghans who have been trying to move to Canada for a better life. The federal government announced yesterday funding of more than $35 million for Indigenous communities during Pope Francis's visit to Canada. The Pope is set to visit Alberta, Quebec, and Nunavut from the 24th to the 29th this month. During his stay, the Pope will advance his apology aiming toward reconciliation and healing of the Métis, Inuit, and First Nations peoples. According to a statement from the Crown Indigenous Relations Minister, Mark Miller, the funding will help Indigenous people who wish to see the Pope in person cover their traveling expenses. The funding can also be used to arrange ceremonies and events as the communities deem suitable. One of the most prominent Muslim cultural festivals in North America, MuslimFest, will reach Markham tomorrow. The event will start in the afternoon at 1:30 at Masjid Darul Iman, also known as the Islamic Center of Markham. Organized by DawahNet and Sound Vision, the family festival provides a platform for Muslims from all walks of life to come together and strengthen their bonds with their community. Tickets are available online at muslimfest.com. President Joe Biden lands in Jeddah, where he is expected to meet with Saudi royals, including de facto ruler Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Biden departed Tel Aviv on Friday aboard a historic direct flight from Israel to Saudi Arabia, the latest stop on his Middle Eastern tour as a U.S. leader. Hours ahead of the president's arrival in Jeddah, the oil-rich Gulf Kingdom changed its aviation rules in an apparent gesture of openness towards Israel. Topics of discussion include the Iranian nuclear program, oil production, and the integration between Arab and Israel nations. Biden now appears ready to re-engage with a country that has been a key strategic ally of the United States for decades, a major supplier of oil and an avid buyer of weapons. Washington wants the world's largest exporter of crude to open the floodgates to bring down soaring gasoline prices, which threaten Democratic chances in November midterm elections. President Biden will meet Arab leaders from Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, Iraq, Jordan, and Egypt at the Arab Regional Summit tomorrow. And that's all for the news. How do you have a productive summer with your kids? Well, here to answer that question is the Director of Religious Education of Sound Vision, the parent company of Muslim Network TV. Thank you, Sister ZAHIRAH EPPARD, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. Nice to see you.
Likewise, likewise. Now, there was an online publication titled, Let's Have Some Summer Fun. What was the inspiration behind putting ideas together for summer activities for kids?
So when summer comes, there's definitely a change in the schedule for any family that has children. And what can happen is that there's just a relaxation into nothingness that sometimes can cause boredom, and it sometimes can cause parents to be frustrated too. So we thought now was a great time to pose some ideas about things you can do on a rainy day. about things that you might want to keep in mind if you're traveling with your kids, either overseas, or particularly if you have a child who might have special needs, some things to keep in mind, or some other fun activities that you might be able to do together as a family, family-centered activities that can also increase family bonding.
Understood. So now, what have you noticed as common traps, parents should avoid during summertime? For instance, the easy go-to is like too much screen time. Are there any other things that you've noticed in your experience that parents should avoid?
Sure, screen time is certainly a problem. In fact, we're going to be concentrating on online safety in an upcoming issue, so I hope people will stay tuned for that. But one of the things that can happen is that there just is a total relaxation of any kind of schedule. I'm not a proponent of overscheduling anything. And in fact, I think children learn a lot from being bored. There's all kinds of studies that indicate that creativity, in fact, catapults when kids actually reach some stage of boredom. But today's kids are used to being entertained. And when they're used to being entertained, they can become very cranky if they are not entertained, and that can cause a lot of friction between children and parents. So what we want to do is avoid that, not overschedule, but definitely start planning things that can fill in those gaps.
Now, curious, what is that sweet spot though, when you have the rigid school schedule versus the total relaxation and freedom? What have you found to be a solid sweet spot?
So I have 6 kids, and I can tell you it's different for every child. But when you have a large family, what you often have to do is offer lots of different choices. What works for one kid might not work for another. One may love games or playing inside. Another might definitely need to be outside, exhibiting lots of energy that way. So I think you have to be flexible. You have to also respect difference. And this is something that can be a great teaching tool at home, making sure that everybody gets a chance to pick the game that might be played on family game night. Maybe pick a different movie. Everybody take turns picking a different movie. Maybe people actually taking charge of making dinner. Cooking together is a wonderful family-centered activity that can actually teach new skills and reinforce things like mathematics, even if recipes are needing to be doubled or halved or things like that. Science is another area that can be fun and not grueling, and so you can do all kinds of family explorations in the park, and taking a hike, going to a new location, even visiting a museum online. We have a wonderful list of virtual museums and cultural centers that might be nice to visit, even if you can't visit them in person. So in the newsletter, what we like to do is offer lots of different choices. There are tons of resources out there for parents, but they're only good if you know about them and know about using them. So.
Right. So everyone is different. Every child has certain tendencies that they go towards. But do you happen to have a particular go-to activity that you'd recommend? Anything that's always a hit?
I think you can't go wrong with reinforcing reading of all kinds. It doesn't matter what a child reads. You shouldn't be too interested, and we can guide them towards certain things, but you shouldn't be too rigid about only allowing them to read things that you pick for them. Reading of all kinds is a great activity. It can spawn learning, but it also enhances all kinds of academic achievement. So reading is definitely a go-to. Any kind of outdoor activity is also a good choice. There are beautiful things that we can learn about Allah's creation in the variation of the landforms around us and the variations of animals and plant life around us. So getting out and exploring together as a family will create great memories and might also increase opportunities for teachable moments.
So with those teachable moments, it requires a lot of preparation and time. What would you say to those parents where they say totally on board, totally makes sense, you want to have that productive summer, but reality kicks in. I just don't have the time to go through all this. What would you say as
This
advice?
is why we put together this kind of issue. We have lots of different articles you read. One of them by Wendy Diaz, one of our feature writers, has 16 different indoor activities that are really based on Islamic activities. making your own prayer rug, building a mosque in your home, making puppets that might be dressed up as Muslim prophets or characters in history. There are all kinds of things you can do. There's not one particular prescription for every single family or every single child even. What parents really need to realize is that even though we are used to structured education, parents are our children's first teachers. They learn from you and they love just being around you. So creating opportunities for bonding will go a very long way, especially during the summer when you don't have the often rigid schedules and different schedules that a big family might have to focus attention on.
So curious, Sister Zahra, Zahira, what would you say is something? What's the cause for this falling off the wagon for some? Where if it's that bonding, those family values, where, in your opinion, where has that kind of gone off track?
Well, I think that we have everything in our societies has speeded up around us. Every minute of every day is scheduled. We have devices in our faces, nearly 24/7. It's often beside you on your night table, and it's the first thing you check in the morning. It's the last thing you look at when you go to bed. So overscheduling is a real issue, and not just allowing organic opportunities for us to remember about connection. Connection is essential to children, connecting with them emotionally, connecting with them physically, and connecting with them spiritually as Muslims goes a very long way in every aspect of their development, all the way into adulthood.
Now, speaking of technology, this is, for every folks, there's so many sides to it. And some folks might say, well, let's use technology as a tool to use. Is there any way that you can recommend or use or as a perspective on how we can use technology to actually get closer with the kids?
So I don't know if technology really enhances our connection to children as parents. Technology could connect children to interesting activities, interesting information, but there's also dangers in it too. There's nothing that can equate to actually being physically close. Let's think about just even a hug. A hug can happen very organically. It can happen at night when you, excuse me, tuck your children into bed. But that's a physical touch, a physical experience that cannot be matched any other way. You may be able to talk to a child on a phone if you're not physically present, but you will never be able to replicate with any GIF or any other emoji a physical hug. So if there's one thing that I would leave you with today, it would be connection. Engage in the kinds of activities that will help you and your child connect with one another. Learn what each other likes, learn what you don't like, learn together. There is no way of going back and enhancing those kinds of activities down the road. We have to live in that moment.
No emoji can replace a hug. There you go. Now, how can people find out more information about kids and summer fun?
So the issue is filled with lots of different resources. I would definitely check that out. You can do that at soundvision.com/Muslim home. We publish every Wednesday during the week. As I mentioned, our next issue is going to be online safety, another very important and timely issue for parents.
All right, that's all the time we have for now. But thank you, Sister Zahira, for sharing your insights, and all the best on nurturing the next generation.
Thank you very much.